people really overestimate how much other people think about them. And that to me was actually comforting, because if I flop, am I just going to like lose all my followers and people will hate me? Of course not. They don't care. They're thinking about themselves right now. They're thinking about their kids and their families and what they're going to eat for dinner. So having that mindset is huge for me. Just realizing, yeah, I might be doing some cool stuff, but I'm not that important. And other people are just living their lives just like me. I'm okay being wrong, because over time it becomes increasingly more important for me to not care about being right, just care more about getting it right or being the right type of person. If I care about being right all the time and that's what I attribute my value to, well, like the best creators out there still flop 90% of the time if they're lucky. So if my value is attached to that, then I've got like a 10% value out of 100% total, which is terrible. That's just not true. That's not what the value is attached to at all. There are still a lot of traditional companies out there that do not like content creators. So at least until those companies die in multiple decades from now, they're going to be people that have jobs. I think there's a lot of truth in the sense that everyone should learn to code. Everyone should create content. That's true generally. It can't hurt you to have those skills, and people should do that. I think you're not risking never being able to get a job if you don't create content going forward. What you're risking is what's happened to a lot of our parents and our grandparents, where they get stuck in careers that they don't care about. You know, I've definitely got a lot of people in my life that do work because they need money to support a family. And that's it. That's where work stops. It starts and stops there. There's no value to it to them. It's not something that they want to talk about outside of work. There's no skill set that it's really building. It's just there to support for the family. That's it. End of story. If you're not willing to create content going forward, I think it really narrows down your ability to pick the kind of career that you want. Like if you're an accountant, if you create content, you'll be better off than an accountant that does not, because you'll have more opportunities within that group of people to do cool things that interest you, to talk about things that interest you. But like if you just never create content, especially like the generation before us and the generation before that, these younger kids, if they're not down to code and to create content, they'll still have jobs. The formulas are out there. The variable that is missing for a lot of people is just being an interesting person. And everyone's like, well, teach me the secret to growing a following. I'm like, well, I don't really know. The formulas are there, but it's how you patch things in with your own personality that makes all the difference. You have to be an interesting person. Yeah. You have to have interesting thoughts. And that's not something that can be taught, obviously. I can't teach you charisma, can't teach you how to be a good copywriter in terms of like how to be an interesting person or a likable person. You have to be you, and whatever the crowd is that likes that person will come to you eventually if you keep putting out content. And that's a huge reason, everything that I've just said right there, a huge reason why prolific quantity of content is so important. You have to put a portfolio together of thousands of terrible posts to learn what kind of sticks. It's like throwing spaghetti against a wall. Sometimes it's going to stick. Sometimes, most of the time, it's not. You have to figure out what were the little elements that worked there. What was that part of my personality that sparked interest, that actually got some engagement? And then make sure you go back and engage with those people and thank them for their time by continuing the conversation. That's the stuff that gets lost in all that. Like the formatting is cool. That'll help a little bit. Designing your post to look nice, writing it well, that all helps. But the real heart of it all is, do you have your soul in the tweet? Like, can people tell that's a Blake tweet? That's a John tweet or a Melissa tweet? You know, like, can people tell that that's you? And when you get to that point is when there's really nothing you can do to fail at that point. Just starting out. I promise that you're terrible. And I promise that when you look back a year from now, if you've posted like every single day, you're going to think you're so freaking robotic. with the early posts. And it's taking the robot out of the post and putting in the person. It takes a long time. And there's nothing really that can teach you how to do that except kind of just writing a ton, looking at what other people are doing. And then honestly, what's done it for me is seeing people that are robotic and finally having it click like, oh my gosh, is that what I sound like? That's terrible. Like being able to see real examples of other people helps you realize what you're doing yourself. And if you can be aware of that and be okay just putting out tons and tons of content and learning 1% every single day if you can, that's the formula. And then maybe 6 years from now, you'll have 10,000 Twitter followers and everything you say is gold. But until then, just find joy in sharing your ideas. For me, I think of the opportunity of like, would I rather just put in work for 10 years and then 10 years from now be known as the person for this thing? And I could basically have whatever opportunity I want?
Mm-hmm.
Or would I rather cash in right now and have a comfortable lifestyle because I'm selling a course? But you got to realize also when you're creating content that people are paying for, your job is twofold now. You're no longer really a marketer anymore. You're a salesperson and a customer support rep. So before they buy the course, you got to keep convincing people, new people, to buy the course. And then once they do buy it, you have to be a customer service rep for the rest of time until you decide to shut the course down. So if you're willing to do that and that's the life you want, go for it. You can do that. For me, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do customer service. I'm still a pretty impatient person, and like starting out in my career, I certainly wanted things to go a lot faster. But then I realized that the more patient I was, the more surprised I was at how quickly things started happening. So I think that's definitely a skill that I've had to learn, is just being okay waiting, for sure. And it's actually been a huge benefit to me, but it's not something I'm inherently good at. Now I think, yeah, okay, maybe 10 years from now I could have X thing or have Y audience, but I'm a little bit more concerned now with just being in the moment, being good at what I do. And if I can do that and make sure, another part of that is just making sure that I'm going to stick to it. There are a lot of projects that I've started and then given up on, quit, however you want to say it, because I wasn't in it. And I wish that I had realized that before I started those things, but I didn't in a lot of cases. Now I'm getting better at just saying no to things that I don't feel I could go all in on right away. And that certainly helped. I think it's really important for me to say, follow people that have 600 followers. It's okay. They're not bad tweeters. They're probably just getting started and trying to figure out their voice. And the follower count has almost nothing to do with the quality of the person behind the account. There are a lot of accounts that have 100K followers that are terrible content. It's just like, what, this is nonsense. This is a platitude every day that doesn't help me whatsoever. And I think it actually becomes harder the bigger you get to keep making great content. So a lot of the times the best stuff you're going to see out there is from people with under 1,000 followers, because they're in the weeds every single day trying to figure out their voice and what works. And it's way more real.